Without further ado, I'll introduce you to Paul of Citizen Bay.
Hello. So this is the DIY section, but this isn't sponsored by IKEA in case you're coming here for tips about your shelves. This is all about music. We've got 3 panellists, all of whom were desperate to get involved in the previous panel's conversation. Primarily, I think, I don't know how many of you spotted the words audience and consumer and customer and brand engagement and all that sort of stuff. We're not going to talk about any of that. We're going to talk about musicians and fans and what success means and how on earth to make a life in music without having the backing of Simon Cowell, basically. So, without further ado, what I'd love to do is just have each of these 3 wonderful panellists say a little bit about themselves. I would like to say, given that this is Global Entrepreneurship Week, we're going to focus on being an entrepreneur in the music business. We're not talking about... Actually, I want to ask a question. In the audience, how many of you are music entrepreneurs and how many of you are entrepreneurial musicians? So, music entrepreneurs... Entrepreneurial musicians. Who didn't put their hand up? Yeah, what are you?
I manage a band.
You are? Oh, right. Band management. Who else didn't put their hand up? Yes.
Partnering.
Sorry?
Partnering specialist.
You're partnering specialist. Okay. We'll find out what that is. But that's cool. So we got about 50-50. Entrepreneurs in music and musicians who have got a passion to get out there and try and create their own little model. The reason why these 3 guys are on the panel is that these are 3 perfect examples of entrepreneurial musicians who are just going to go out there and do their own thing, trying to create a way rather than waiting to be told what the perfect model is. There's a lot of waiting around. It's a bit like for the bus. You're just sitting there and waiting for someone to tell you how to do it. Don't think that's the way forward, really. It's get your finger out and go and do it. So that's what entrepreneurs do. So I'd love to ask these 3 guys to introduce themselves and give us a little bit of background about this entrepreneurial spirit that each of them have. I'd love to start with Rich next to me first.
Hi, I'm Rich Huxley. I'm the Hux Capacitor on Twitter. I'm in a band called Hope and Social. I was one of the founders of the UK's first fan-funded record label, and things are very nice in music for me. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Steve from the internet.
You're all zeros and ones, aren't you?
I'm just pure digital. I'm Steve Lawson, and the centre of my world is that I'm a solo bass player, which sounds more like a dare than a job. But I make music on my own with a bass and a bunch of looping tools and processing things. And I do gigs and I make far too many records or recordings. I don't actually make records. I've stopped making anything physical because it gets in the way. I started on that journey in the late 90s and I open sourced my process as much as possible. I initially via my news page and then via my blog when it transitioned into being a blog when that word was invented. I let other musicians know what I was up to, and through that ended up speaking a lot in colleges and universities about the process of sustainability of art. That led to me working with charities and NGOs and art sector people on the same stuff, on conversational stuff online, social technology, etc. And then through that, I ended up being part of the all-party working group on the future of the Digital Economy Act after the last election, which was a whole lot of fun, and I'll tell you more about that if you would like over coffee at some point. But yeah, so I make music and I muck around on the web. I'm professionally curious.
Hi, I'm Laura Kidd. I'm a solo artist, She Makes War. So I've been releasing music as that name since 2010, but I've been working in and around music for a lot longer than that, doing video directing and editing, session music. I've toured with people like Tricky, from Tricky to Little Chris. It's quite varied. I was on telly with Aha once, but I was miming. I did all sorts of weird and wonderful things. I'm very interested in empowering people also to do their own music and to not wait around, as Paul was saying, for the people to let you do it. So I run nights called Breakfast with Apollo, which are about creativity and collaboration and community. And I'm setting up a digital DIY collective called My Big Sister starting next year, which is not just for girls, by the way. It's just because I thought that your big sister would probably sort stuff out for you, hence the name. But yeah, let's just start chatting, because I don't think I have anything else I need to list. Steve covered a lot.
So thanks everyone. So on the last panel, they were talking about the troubles and the worries and the concerns. I mean, I actually needed to lie down after it because it sounded it might as well all give up. Let's turn it round. What are you guys? How do you define success as three musicians out there doing your thing? What do you see as success? Is it all about how much you make from Spotify, or is it something more than that?
Who's going to go first? Do you want? Okay, I will.
Go on then, Steve.
For me, the big project as a musician is trying to make sense of the world through music. I'm an instrumentalist, and instrumental music is what happens when words stop. So, front and centre, the single biggest priority is making the best music I can that represents me in the world. Because it is, that it's part of me, it's part of my soul, it's part of who I am, and when people look at it and listen to it, I don't want them to see a brand strategy, I don't want them to see a marketing exercise, I want them to hear what's going on inside. So success is being able to keep doing that. So all the things that make that possible, all the things that allow me to keep doing that without some idiot coming up and saying, you know what you should do? You should do a funk record, you should do an ambient record. To which the answer is always, no, you should, because it's you that wants to hear it. All the stuff that keeps those Muppets at bay and allows me the time and creative freedom to keep working on the project of music that represents me in the world. That's success. So success in sustainability are basically the same thing. It's just the ongoing process of making it. And there are lots, there's a scale to that. And at some point, if I did find myself making all my money through playing, I think I'd probably use that headroom to go and do other interesting things as well, because I don't want to spend 12 hours a day with a bass in my hands. That sounds like... As a friend of mine who's a session bass player who was asked to describe the music industry, and he said, first prize is 10 years on a bus. And I've never wanted that. I kind of like the portfolio life that I have. But in musical terms, it's all about being able to focus on the music. And so the connection with an audience, the making it available to people to pay for if they want to hear, to share, is all about that bigger picture of creating a community around that central thing.
I totally agree with that. That's
Go
a
ahead,
big
Laura.
thing for me too, because I do work as a session bassist, so my prize is a bit of time on a bus. I'm tour, but at the moment, luckily, I'm working with some artists who are really lovely to tour with. So I'm playing with a band called the Penelopes, and we're touring with the Human League starting next Wednesday, which is amazing. It's really cool. I'm very excited. It's not my project, but it's still awesome. So it's an awesome job to have for a couple of weeks. And then when I get back, I'm going to start demoing my third She Makes War album. And that project started because I've been working in the music industry, as I was saying, as well as playing in really DIY bands for no money for years and years. And really just sort of learning about the things I didn't want to do a lot. Like, going on sort of kids' TV at 6 a.m. with sort of boy bands where they really have no control over what they're doing and they're just told to say stupid things. And I just thought, I never really want to be in that position, ever. Like it would be possible, but And so that's really what drives me, is being able to do exactly what I want. And so, because you can't do that when you're getting paid necessarily, so it's nice to have them.
So success is defined by being able to do what you want in the way you want to do it, and if huge money comes along with massive riders and white limousines, then so be it.
I don't like that stuff, honestly. It's horrible.
The weird thing about it is that the number of people who chase that, despite the fact that there's zero evidence that it actually produces anything of any human value, is amazing. That the exact opposite is true. That almost everyone I know who's got into that position sees it as a creative and personal limitation. That almost everybody, I've got a lot of friends who are on kind of various levels of fame, from kind of global megastars through to people who have kind of local fame, and for most of them, the success is a blessing and a curse. And it's a blessing because it affords them a level of financial independence, but you know, in any kind of holistic sense, it's not remotely independent because they are beholden to all the people who've you know, bought their pound of flesh.
But fundamentally as well, all that luxury stuff is someone's money being wasted. Doesn't matter whose it is. So I don't think that's really anything to be proud about anyway if someone starts throwing stuff around.
The reason why I ask is getting to the core of what success is, because quite often everyone is perceiving success in the music business as something, and yet success for a musician can be very, very different. And what's fascinating is to work out what are the key elements to try and achieve success for every musician. Is it about, for instance, the ability to manage your fan base and grow your fan base and have the skill sets to be able to do that? So, Rich, what about you?
Well, it's always tricky being on a panel with these two because they speak sort of sense and say what I was going to say anyway. But I think there's a couple of steps. Firstly and foremost, for musicians, it's really important, as they've already said, to be able to make the music that you want to make.
Yeah.
That said, there is still an economic aspect to that, which is in terms of making something sustainable, i.e. to be able to keep on doing what you want to do, at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later, it's got to stop costing you money. So in 2008, Hope and Social started, and we'd come to London and we'd play to 30 people and we'd make a net loss of 200 quid. Not a fantastic business model. But we're in a position now where we can tour and we don't have to pay for our own food, we don't have to pay for anything while we're out, and at the end of the tour we'll work out what we've earned and then split that amongst us in a nice sharing fashion, including our engineers and everyone like that. So in terms of success, I think it's if you can get to that point where it's not costing you anything, where you could afford to keep on doing the thing that you want to do because you love the thing you do, and then it turns into something that becomes part of your living. And similarly to Steve, I wouldn't do it, solely, even if it paid me 50 grand a year. I would still be interested in working with young people in music or writing or stuff like this, whatever it may be. So yes, there's an economic factor to it, but critically, if you can do what you want to do and it not cost you anything, that's a huge step. That's a big step on the road to success, I think.
Can I say something about that? This is going to be like this.
Oh, all right.
Me next, me. I would say that the thing that annoys me the most about independent musicians at the moment is that everyone seems to complain about how little you get paid for Spotify or, oh, Facebook isn't perfect, blah, 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 without actually realising that you actually just have to do stuff. So Rich's band aren't touring and getting paid because they sat around and waited for someone to come and make that happen for them. They worked their asses off for 4 years to make that happen. And if you're not prepared to put the work in and start to change things and make things happen yourself, then you may as well sit whinging about Facebook and just stop cluttering the music scene, because I just don't see the point.
It's the old glass half full, half empty situation, isn't it? You go back, my wife's grandfather and his brother were musicians in the area of France called Auvergne, and they used to go from village to village with their accordion and everything. Now, in those days, and before that, travelling musicians would have to walk miles and miles to earn a crust to eat. So sometimes we sort of have taken for granted this amazing stuff that we have to be able to connect with thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people. It's all here for us. It's about how we leverage it and how we utilise it. I mean, and I just want to give one example. Steve is a guy who I'm sure all of you in the room have come across him, know him. But for those of you who don't, his usage of Twitter is just astonishing in terms of how he's used it as part of his musical life. I just want to ask you, Steve, for those of the people in the room who don't know, give us a little insight about how Twitter is a part of...
Twitter's just a kind of sentence at a time transcription of the inside of my head. So in the same way that my music is the soundtrack to the inside of my head, the Twitter is the text. So I mean I don't. It's funny because it's worked very well for me in lots of senses. But despite that not being the plan, I don't actually think I'm a particularly good example of how to use Twitter because I tweet far too much. And my own sister unfollowed me, and I went, that's fine. I'm not surprised. There were days when I'd unfollow me, if I could. Because I've tweeted 104,000 times, I think, which is about 6 PhDs worth. So yeah, but I kind of use it I kind of use it as a way of sorting out thoughts and throwing out questions and crowdsourcing stuff. So I turn up in London it's a serendipity engine for me. So I turn up in London every couple of weeks, and on the train on the way down, I go, right, who's interesting, wants to meet up? And I get to meet amazing people, and I don't there's no kind of barrier on that. It's not like, well, you have to be, I want to see how much your company's making, what you can do for me. It's like, no, I'm happy to come and help you out if that's what you need. So it all kind of, I guess it ties in a bit with what Rich was saying about there being an economic aspect to what we do. And I think economy is a much more useful concept than business or industry in this, because economies can be non-monetary. And I think within the music economy, money doesn't come in the top 3 most valuable currencies that we're trading in. I think there are lots of things that are more important than the amount of money we make. So I kind of get annoyed when we get caught up in because it's not that it's not important, because life is getting progressively more expensive, and avenues for actually paying in order to just kind of tread water are getting worse because of the recession. So it's not that money isn't important, but it's just that there is an order to things. And if you are looking at the impact of music on a culture, a country, a society, a group of people, the amount of money that a handful of individuals within that make from it is neither here nor there. I don't, for a lot of the... it's funny, because when I talk to people who set up music startups, I go, well, on a personal level, I hope you do well. On a kind of what's good for music level, I don't really give a shit. Either more music happens in more places by more people, or it doesn't, and that's what's important. And so as much as I'm more than happy to talk about the degree to which there's a financial sustainability to what I do, I think that it needs to be kept in perspective.
But also, I think worrying about it is it's kind of disempowering. So many people worrying about, can I get money from Spotify? Can I monetize my YouTube channel? If you're spending your time thinking about that, rather than focusing on making great art, sharing it with people, then you're wasting your time. It's removing your power. Like, I think our experience, certainly, and from personal experience, is if you make great stuff and you share it with people and you're friendly with them, people flock to your shows and buy your stuff. Not because they can't get it for free, because if they wanted to get it for free, they could get it for free. They do it because they want to give you money. And that's the benefit of a relationship with your fans. And your fans can be anyone. You never know people who are going to become your fans. But be friendly, make great art, share it. Don't worry about where the money's coming from. If you release that music and allow people to pay for it, some people will choose to.
Isn't this the difference between treating fans as people versus treating fans as consumers on a data sheet?
Yes. And that's why Twitter's really good, because, it's not the only great social media platform, obviously, but it is a really good place to not be able to hide behind bullshit, basically, and to get to know people a bit better. I use it a lot as well. I used it much more before I was putting out music. That's where I got most of my followers. Just by chatting and really, I don't have a fear, in the same way that Steve doesn't have a fear of meeting people off Twitter, because I'm not like having an imaginary life on Twitter and then I'm like, keeping them all apart. Within certain limitations, obviously. Make them in the day, maybe. But I just think that it really is about, just sharing and being genuine, and that might just sound like hippie crap, but it works. So
I think that there's an element to this that I guess is kind of at the moment gone unspoken, which is that I have this kind of measure of anyone's kind of model for how music should go, and I think this is kind of core to why this panel was set up the way it is, which is that for me, anything, if there aren't 1,000 examples of something happening, it's an anomaly. So each of us are anomalies, that each of us have a particular perspective and a priority set. And I don't think that those are set in stone. I don't think there's any kind of thing pejorative about choosing to do something else. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to exercise your craft as a musician as a job. It's not that this is about one way being spiritually superior to another. I think that what's important is that what you're doing is realistic. And if you are claiming that the music is your focus, and then, but you're actually the way that you carry on the kind of the business around it, it means that you abdicate that responsibility. You're heading for kind of a major level of cognitive dissonance. And I know a lot of very successful musicians who are in that position, who've sold hundreds of thousands, if not millions of records, and hate those records. And I never want to be there. I couldn't do that. The music is way too important to me to ever let myself get into that place. So it's not that that's a bad thing, because I know other people who make really fucking awful music and are quite happy with it because they make it for idiots. And that's okay. I've got friends who've played on, I don't want to start naming artists, but I've got friends who've played on really, really bad records, demonstrably terrible records, things that measure that you can get meters and plug them into them and go, yeah, this is shit. And they're quite happy to have done it because it was, they're exercising their craft in a way that means that at the end of the day, someone says to them, you've done a good job. And I think for all three of us, when we play on other people's records, there's a difference between that as a craft and doing that as a job and being paid for that, and that process of trying to make manifest something of who you are in the world via the medium of organised sound.
I still choose not to play for anyone's shit now, whether they pay me or not, by the way. That's my new thing.
But again, that's a great choice. And I think the important thing is that that your boundaries are set before you get there, because otherwise you end up like the actors and actresses who go to Hollywood to try and make it and end up doing porn because it's kind of like. Because it's kind of like it's the frog in the boiling water thing. You drop a frog in boiling water and they leap out. So if McDonald's came up to me now and said, "Here's £1 million to put your music in an advert," I'm going to say fuck off and I'm going to phone the papers and make money out of the fact that I've said no.
Well, you should stick around for the afternoon because we've got a brands and bands. If I'd crept into that and I'd gone through the kind of the typical route of management and showcase gigs and a publishing deal and blah, 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 then I wouldn't have had any say in that. And I'd have got to the point where my music was in a McDonald's ad and I'd signed an NDA somewhere down the line that said, if you tell anyone that if you're against the workings of this brand, you're in breach of that contract. And there would be nothing I could do about it. And I know loads of people in that position. Because there's half of you guys are entrepreneurial musicians and the other half, minus a couple of you, are music entrepreneurs. So there's a question that I'm just going to pose now to the panel that hopefully gets you guys thinking, fingers crossed, but also next is going to be you guys, because I want you to start getting your questions ready, because the rest of the time we're going to spend up opening up for you guys to throw stuff at these guys, okay?
Because we will just talk all day otherwise.
Yeah, because otherwise they won't shut up. So here's the thing, and I want this in one word or one little sentence, please. I'm getting like David Dimbleby now. And this is actually Rich's question that I'm nicking. It's if you got 1,500 quid, what would you do with it? Where would you spend it? Would it be on the manager at the back? Would it be on a facilitating specialist? Would it be on some tech startup in the room? Or would it be on, old school flyers and stickers and badges?
You
Rich?
asking us?
Yeah, I'm asking you three.
I asked you this. I don't fucking know.
Why don't we say what we do for it? Why don't I can answer it for you and you can answer it for me? That would be much more useful, because I want to know what you would spend it on for me.
Oh, well, there we go.
Should we do that?
Oh, all right then.
You can have a think first if you want, because I don't want
to go first. Yeah, that'd be great.
Go on.
Don't just
Laura,
say anything.
What would you do, how would you spend 1,500 quid for Hope and Social?
I don't know. No, I think
it's a useless question, isn't it?
I think the thing is, it should either be on gear, but you've got all the gear you need, right? You're set up.
Yeah, we're kind of sorted for that.
So
I
gear.
think the most important things are things like gear,
right.
Time. So giving yourself time to do, really focus on making something good. I really believe in having, ideas are worth more than spending money on them. So for videos, I make all my own videos. None of them have cost more than 500 quid, and that's just because I pay people, because I'm not an idiot. So if someone's filming me, I will pay them a proper amount of money.
So you spend it on gear and...
Gear, people, good people, expertise.
Cool. Gear and expertise. Steve?
If I hadn't already done it, I'd use it to do a mastering course.
Okay.
Because it's probably the single most useful set of musician tools that I've picked up over the last... Well, there's a guy called Ian Shepherd who runs a site called productionadvice.co.uk, and he does a mastering course, and I did it. and it's made my records demonstrably better. We're now working through and remastering my entire back catalogue because it all sounds much better that way. But so it's saving me money, and and the cost of doing the course is less than I would have spent on mastering a record. So I'd spend it on that, and then I'd spend it on gear because I think Rich made the point earlier on that for most people the problem is not the number one problem is not making money, it's spending less. Yep. That most of us just spend money on stupid stuff.
And what about you, Rich?
Yeah,
it's really tricky. I think it depends on obviously on a kind of artist by artist basis. It varies dramatically. For 1,500 quid, you can make yourself as a very respectable studio that you can make great records with. That's what we did with 1,500 quid a while ago, and we're still, using those microphones and hammering that old computer that we've had for 6 years. But it all works. Yeah. The reason I asked the question to you is because somebody's come to us and said, we want, I love the band, would like to support you in some way. Here's 1,500 quid. And we don't know how to spend it. So a bit of crowdsourcing. If anyone's got any ideas on how to spend 1,500 quid,
so guys,
you're going to rewrite Kevin Kelly's 1,000 fans to just be 10 fans.
Yeah.
It's just 10 people, 1,500 quid each. Great, there we go.
This exact thing happened to me a few weeks ago, and this is the only time it's ever happened. One of my fans got in touch on Twitter, started talking about guitars. I thought he was trying to get me to recommend him a guitar because he sounded interested in getting one. He was actually trying to find out what my dream guitar was so he could buy it for me. But because that's so ridiculous, it's really nice, but it's my dream guitar's like 2,000 quid. And I've already got a guitar, that's fine. So I just said, look, called his bluff, did an Amazon wish list of a few microphones and a keyboard and stuff. And I was like, look, if you really want to help me, and please don't feel you have to, here's a little list of stuff that's actually useful. And here's a charity I also think you should be giving money to, because I support War Child. And he did, and I got a keyboard and a microphone, and how nice is that? That's right, brilliant. That's really lovely. Hey. I know, he's amazing. Lovely man. He lives in Australia.
Right. I just give him a massive Ocado order. I just get food.
We're going to go to the orders. Now, someone tweeted earlier, when I said, I'm sitting on a panel, I've got these together for a panel, they just went, good luck with getting a word in edgeways. I don't know what they meant. Anyway, so, dear audience, rather than just sit there and have to listen to those three rattle on, questions. Oh, excellent. I'm already 2 up. Yeah, go ahead, please.
So my question, I've got a series of questions.
Could you put the microphone right up into your...
I've got a series of questions. The first one...
Oh, just one, because we've got a couple of other...
they're all about the same one, because I wanted to know how long you've been musicians and how long you've been entrepreneurs, and in fact, how long has it taken you to get to the position you hold now? When you first set out as a musician, did you have the same kind of DIY philosophy, or did you have different dreams, and it's just now with some age and wise experience you've come to this conclusion?
Good one. Rich?
I started playing when I was 11, which is 25 years ago, and started gigging in bands when I was 15 in my uncle's 60s band, formed my own duo, Cheesy Covers duo, at like 17. I think there's a big misconception that you're not in the music industries when you're doing that. And for me, as soon as you start going out and performing in front of people and sharing your music and getting paid for it, you are part of the music industry and you are being, to some degree, entrepreneurial. The journey to where we are now, or where I am now, is taking many twists and turns, including paying PR companies thousands of pounds for very little results. But it's been constantly reaffirmed to me that the good things come from... The best things we've ever done, the best things I've ever been involved with, have been stuff that we've done ourselves with the involvement of people around us. And that's what brought Hope and Social to being an independent band, sell everything on Bandcamp for pay what you want, and specialising in events that draw people in, and that's kind of where our cash is coming from. Does that answer that?
What about you, Steve?
I've been playing since I was 14, which is 746 years ago.
You wise man.
I did 2 years at music college and went straight from that to touring Europe with a Canadian gospel singer, and made less in my first 3 years as a professional musician than I got for my student grant. which shows you how old I am, because it was back in the days of grants. I became an entrepreneur about 20 minutes ago when Paul said it. It's not a word that I relate to at all. I mean, when I said at the beginning that I was professionally curious, that is the heart of it, is that I like discovering about the world and I like discovering about people and opportunities to do that. So it's kind of, a lot of these kind of things, it's one of the questions that often comes up with these things is about, you know, skills you've had to learn in order to do what you do. And I go, well, it just doesn't work like that for me. It's kind of skills that I've been enabled to learn through the medium of music. And it's like, I just like learning stuff. I have a love of learning. Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest one is about 11 years ago. I realised that my aim wasn't to make music full time. I can't remember what, I think it was teaching actually was the thing, because I think I went on tour and I found that in the course of a month's tour, I really missed teaching. I really missed the connection with students. I really missed the adrenaline rush I got from someone who didn't know something learning it and me being able to go, oh, I did that. And that sort of blossomed through the last decade, that as I added more and more weird things to this portfolio career of mine, I became a journalist, I started doing this kind of stuff. This is great, this is like a gig. I don't have to load in any gear, this is fabulous. I like words, obviously, so anything that enables me to kind of mess around with language and try and ask better questions. Because I think there's a connection with what I do as a musician as well in that, and that music isn't about answers, it's about asking better questions. That songs that provide answers are generally a bit crap. So I'm waffling now, aren't I? But yeah, so in terms of aspirations, it's got much more kind of arty-farty and less focused on I want to be that guy on the stage. I don't mind if I'm playing to 5 people or a million, makes no odds.
Laura?
I started playing when I was 5. I started playing instruments I liked when I was 12 and writing songs that were really bad. And then I joined a band that had a really, really bad, very small record deal, and then decided that was really bad because we couldn't use our songs after it all went horribly bad. And also, they were not very nice boys I was in a band with. And then, yeah, I'm very independent-minded now, but my aspirations are, I'm incredibly, what's the word? I can't think of it. I really, really want to tour a lot and do lots of music and have people listen to me. I definitely have aspirations towards that. I want to stay independent, but I want to work alongside people. Like, I'm not against having a manager, I'm not against having a label, but it would have to be very specifically what I wanted. My aspirations probably haven't changed that much, but the way I do things probably have. But I think that really, the moment I decided to just really be myself and to not be afraid anymore about, you know, dressing up as a unicorn or whatever I fancied doing, actually that was when people started actually really, you know, it was resonating with them. That's the first time. Before that, it was all a bit nothingy. I played a lot of shit gigs.
At the back, gentleman at the back.
Hi. Steve, you mentioned earlier that money wasn't in your top 3 economy list. What's in your top 3, please? And obviously, everybody else, feel free to answer, but I'll follow that question.
That's 3 things, Steve. 3.
The experience of playing music, the experience of listening to music, and the experience of learning music would be the top 3. That actually, and in fact, number 4 would be the role it plays as a kind of in building community. So music probably 5, 6, 7, somewhere down the list.
It's really
but they're all about that community experience, because 99% of music practice doesn't involve money.
I knew this is going to be
Moderate,
fun.
Paul, come on.
No, I'm not moderating at all. I'm just sitting back and enjoying this. Go on, Rich.
I think number 1, I don't have 2 and 3 necessarily, but it's the community that's around what you do, and that's as much about, you know, shouting about other people's music and how awesome they are as it is about being the centre of attention.
For me, it's expressing my personality through music and visuals, and also the community bit.
Cool. And then we've got a lovely lady in a lovely hat at the back who would like to ask a question. Obviously, it's a bit cold there.
I'm covering my hair. It's messy.
That's what you meant to do.
Now
Thanks for telling me. Anyone got a spare hat?
I'd like to ask, apart from money, which is considered the main struggle for musicians, what do you think is the main struggle? And also, how do you overcome these struggles whilst keeping your passion for music as well?
Nice one.
I don't
Laura.
really think there's much of a struggle. I think we're all very privileged. So I don't think there's a struggle at all. I think you just need to get on with it. Sorry.
Right.
Just meeting those kind of aesthetic demands that my brain puts on. You know, I have a thing I want to say, I'm trying to say it, and I'm constantly fighting that. And I can be happy with it any one moment, but tomorrow I want to say something new. So it's all creative. That the only struggle is creative.
Rich?
Have fun and make art, really. It seems to be the only kind of thing that I try and strive for and kind of evangelise about. I don't think money is the main thing. There is a struggle because it's so inexpensive to make music if you want to. And if what you want to do is make music, then you can do it cheaply. Whether it pays you or not is another matter.
Guy at the front there.
Yeah, I was going to kind of ride along on the last question, and that is, with DIY music, do you find it very difficult to manage or not allow the business side of the art to interfere with the actual creating of the art? I mean, that's got to be very difficult to manage.
It is really hard. It takes a lot of time to maintain all of your online stuff, especially if you're doing it literally all yourself, which I think we all are, right? I think we got invisible assistants that we pretend we don't have, like other independent DIY artists. But then it's not a competition to be more DIY than somebody else. And there's some brilliant people who are forging ahead with different models that are very interesting. I don't want to mention Amanda Palmer, really. I want to mention Gabby Young. Heard of Gabby Young and Other Animals? She's a UK-based artist. She has a team around her, which she's built up herself. And she has this phenomenal band, live band. You know, the actual music and the art and the expression of that art and the performance of that art is so brilliantly rehearsed, you know, and presented. But she also has, you know, sponsors, I think makeup sponsors, fashion sponsors. She works with a stylist sometimes. She does different, you know, she has that sort of little team. And I think that's very aspirational for someone like me, because I don't want to do it all on my own, because you're right, it does start to encroach. Lots of really late nights on the computer going, why on earth am I doing this? Who really cares? So.
I don't know if I'm kind of inferring the right thing from this, but in terms of being able to make the art you want to make, I think that's one of the great things about doing stuff yourself, is that you can be completely unencumbered by any external pressures. The main challenge, I think, similarly to what you just said, is time.
So we're just going to get a couple more questions.
Can I quickly answer that one, because I do have a different answer. I think the hardest element business-wise is every time you have to transition. Because for me, my big interest is in scalability. This idea of DIY or signed is utter bullshit. That's how it was in the 70s. It was either make tapes on your own or get signed. I think that what we now have is the potential for minutely fragmented, scalable infrastructure. But every time you go, okay, now I need a manager, now I need an assistant, now I need a drummer, now I need a PR team. Every single one of those decisions there's quite a big commitment. And doing it outside of the terms of reference of the old industry, because all the language to do with that is about you giving them money speculatively. That entire industry was speculative because we had no other alternative. It was, yeah, of course you're going to play for a plugger because you can't get to radio otherwise. And now we can. So if I go to a plugger, it's like, well, okay, give me some ROI. What am I going to get out of this? I'm not going to give you $1,000 a week just on the possibility that I might get a session on Robert Elms. That's ridiculous. So those kind of negotiations, the headspace that occupies is kind of big, and it's one of the reasons why I've stayed just me. It's that I don't deal with that well. I go, no, I just want to play bass, and I'm happy to deal with whatever implicit glass ceiling there is on that.
Just want to go over to the last question. No, you know what's great? Steve's also going to be on the next panel. So am I, but I'm not moderating it. It's going to be fantastic. We've got a question there from
my question was about how do you feel that the industry as such has maybe adapted to this do-it-yourself boom as to maybe even benefiting the industry in the way that artists are now promoting themselves and getting out there and then signing off when they've actually got somewhere? How do you think the industry has adapted to
I don't think there is an industry. I think there are lots of industries, and I think a lot of what we do is post-industrial. So I think that this idea of a homogenous music industry is a premillennial concept. So I think that there are bits of... So Simon Cowell and I aren't in the same business. I hope that whatever business he's in collapses very quickly. But it's not... But what he does, and that economy, or the economy, the economy that means that Coldplay delaying their record knocks 16% off EMI's share price. They're not in the same industry as me. They're not in the same business. They're not part of the same economy.
Rich.
So I think the terminology needs to change.
Rich.
really just what he said, isn't it?
But you know what? Some of these major labels, I'll call them major labels. I'm not going to call them the music business either, because that's ridiculous. But these major labels think it's really cool to be DIY now, so they're trying to make it look like artists are DIY, so that we buy into it more, which is fucking irritating.
Well, here's another thing, because we're going to wrap up now. But the other thing is that there's so much conversation about the industry, because we hear that word a lot about the industry. But the thing is, if we put it into historical context, the industry, as we think of it, is really not that old. It's only, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Columbia record was it 100-odd years or something or other. That's nothing in the grand scheme of things.
And look what we've done to it. Well done, everyone.
Yeah, but the thing is, so this whole focus on the music industry is so narrow, because if we go back to the Renaissance period of the great Italian cultural art movement, that was sponsored, that was patronised by rich individual families, just like brands are trying to sponsor and patronise musicians now. Nothing's really changed for millennia. When you go back to the caveman, they were knocking out notes off of bones, and there'll be someone there listening and tapping their feet. Fundamentally, the relationship between musician and fan, that's what really counts, and we should stop focusing on the word industry, put that to one side. That's just nothing to do with what musician and fan is all about. It's something far more fundamental.
You're communicating something, that's the whole point.
So, we got one last question.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say...
Really quick, because then we're going to kill it.
Yeah, echoing kind of what you were saying before, there's obviously a difference between the success of a record label, where you could say that the artists themselves are the record label's success, and the kind of success that you're talking about, which is carving out some kind of like an individual niche. So, kind of looking back at the panel before, is social media then your greatest ally, or is it something that you feel a bit trepidatious about? I know you've talked about Twitter, but... monetizing.
I'm certainly not trepidatious about it. It's just conversation. I would have it with people one-on-one. And the problem with social media is that we don't know. Every time anyone tries to come up with a metaphor or a simile for it, they fail because nothing like it has ever existed before. That level of disintermediation, of being able to talk across geographical boundaries, across time boundaries, nothing like that has ever existed before. So don't try and go, it's like a conversation in a pub. It's like, no, it's not, none of that at all.
But without the internet and all the tools... Sorry. Without the internet and all the tools, all these amazing tools that we've got, which we should be really thankful for. I mean, I wouldn't have any fans. I wouldn't be able to get my music to anyone. I don't know what I'd do, personally mail it to people who I didn't know. Do you know what I mean? It's all brilliant, and we just need to use it in the ways that work best for your project, basically.
You'll be like those dodgy companies on PPI claims, phoning up, go, hello, would you like a CD, please?
Yeah, basically. Well, I'd just
Rich,
do a zine, wouldn't I?
Last word is to you, Rich.
I think it's the best thing, not only in terms of what it does for our music, but also how it is for me personally. It brings a great deal of joy to my life.
There we go. Joy. See? Half full, not half empty. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks for listening
Thanks to the panel.
Thank you.